Hi, I'm Kenneth WAJDA. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my daily or weekly photography talks. I sometimes get confused because I have a daily photography podcast. If you go to your podcast app and search my name, you'll come up with my daily photography podcast. But today I want to talk about how do we see something that is new versus something that's old. I know a lot of people photograph old pickup trucks or old cars, cars from the 70s, cars from the 60s if they see one. And they photograph old barns and they love the old barn wood. And I like all that too. And there's a nostalgia in old gas stations. If you go to Jason Lee and search his name, he's a photographer. He was on My Name is Earl, and then he also has always been a photographer, travels around with a big old Lincoln and drives around and photographs old scenes in rural Texas. And he shoots with a 4x5 and an 8x10 camera. And he's enamored by what was and the old. But there were photographers like Stephen Shore and William Eggleston who were photographing the mundane of their day, the cars, but they weren't photographing the cars from the 30s and 40s because they were in the 60s and 70s. They were photographing the cars of their day. And they were finding ways to make color choices or compositional choices that made for photographs that we look at now. Probably if they were featured in gallery shows then, people would, dismiss them and say, well, so what? Who cares? But we look at them now, we're going, oh my God, look at those great old cars. But they weren't old cars. Those were new cars. Those were the cars of the day. And my question is, are we missing the cars of today because we can't see them? There's nothing to see here. That blue Infiniti, why would I photograph that? Hey, but look at that old Cadillac Eldorado. Yeah, but what about that Nissan? Or what about that Chevy? I guess I was going to say Oldsmobile. I don't think they make those anymore. What about those cars? How do we see what's in front of us and not miss it? Because I think that there's a lot of things that photographs become very valuable when they let us step back in time. But it takes a visionary to step back in time today with thoughts of where we will be in 40 years and why we will want to see this. It takes a visionary to think, this doesn't look like anything to most people here, but in 40 years, they would love to go back to 2020 and see what a 2020 car looks. Oh my God, that car's from the 20s. If you're in 2060, that's a big difference. There may not be steering wheels and wheels on cars anymore. They may all be flying cars for all I know. The point is, somebody has to photograph the current day and save those photographs if we're going to have documentation of where we are now, and not just people in 2060 coming back and shooting the vintage 2020 cars that they can come upon, like we're doing with the 1960s and 70s cars that we come upon. So where's the vision? Who is making that kind of photography? Where is that new topographics type photograph of the things that are in front of us? They may seem not special enough. They may seem too ordinary, but they're only ordinary now. That changes. So in my travels, I try to photograph things that not only interest me photographically because I'm inspired by all of the nostalgia just like anybody else, but I try to look for the things that are strong compositions that maybe would be missed because they don't have some of that nostalgia, but at the same time they have good color, good composition, and I try to add those as extras to the things that do catch my eye as a way to think someday these photographs will have impact, because time makes photographs more valuable. When I first moved to my previous town 15 years ago, I photographed all the local businesses, and then I made up a photo directory of all the businesses. And I photographed the outside and the inside, and I made up a web-linked directory. And then after about 10 years, the site wasn't being used much. I discontinued it, and another 5 years went by, and I came upon the photographs that were in that body of web photographs of the town, of the businesses. And many of the businesses weren't there anymore. And I just put them up online thinking maybe some people would like to see what that town was like 15 years ago. And people were crazy for those. They're like, oh my God, look, there's the pie shop. There's the Italian restaurant we used to go to. There's that pizza place. Those photographs weren't amazingly great photographs. They were amazingly great memories. And those photographs, finely composed and all that, but what those folks were responding to wasn't the lighting and the composition. They were responding to the moment and their memories of that place and being there. And I think when I play in a band, the songs we pick, we always say, we're not there to perform like we're some rock stars. We're just delivering memories to folks so they can dance along to something that they remember. And we like to play, and they like to participate in. They like to relive, hey, I know where I was when I heard that song. I love that song. That's what we do. As if you're playing cover music, you're bringing memories to people through that music. And if you're documenting the ordinariness, that pizza shop in a town that's 15 years later, that photograph becomes valuable to people, maybe not everybody around the world, but at least to the people who are in that environment who had gone there. That's a great memory to be able to bring back. And it doesn't have to be limited to local, but certainly that's one way. You can see a very short passage of time, and then suddenly there's value in a photo that seemed like nothing to see here. Hey, there's something to see here. So if you will have a photo project and you're looking for something to photograph, go around your town and just photograph everything that is in existence now and put them away. 20 years will make something valuable, at least to the folks of that town, because times will change, businesses will close, new ones will open, and you will have the memories of what was. And that's important. All right, that's today's photography talk. Shooting nostalgia and shooting modern. If you're enjoying these, hit the subscribe button. If you can support, hit the Patreon. I appreciate that so much, and I will be back next week. We'll talk photography. I welcome your comments. As always, here's a good light.